Eliane from Patchwork and Poodles, and today I'm going to show you how I thread baste my quilts. I'm primarily a spray baster, and I have a video on that process too. However, for some longer-term hand quilting projects, I much prefer thread basting my quilts. I've found that since I don't pre-wash any of my fabrics, some of the fabrics I use have a lot of sizing or additives that make the spray base not stick as well as I'd like to the quilt that I'm quilting. This isn't a big deal if I'm machine quilting because I finish the quilt relatively fast, but if I'm hand quilting and I know I'll be moving the quilt around a lot, thread basting gives me extra security. I prefer it over pin basting because then when I'm hand quilting, I don't have to worry about my thread getting stuck on or around the pins. I first start by taping my backing onto the floor using painter's tape. It is important to take your time with this step to ensure that your backing is nice and smooth without wrinkles or puckers. However, be sure not to stretch your backing as this can cause issues when quilting. I tape the entire backing to the floor, smoothing it out as I go. Sometimes I have to reposition pieces of tape to make sure that everything is the way I want it to look. Then, I lay my batting on top. Batting has a right and a wrong side, so feel your batting. You'll notice that one side feels smoother than the other. The smooth side is the top of your batting, and you want that facing up. You want the top of your batting to be touching the back of your quilt top. I smooth my batting on top of my backing, getting rid of any wrinkles in the batting. If your batting is really wrinkled, consider lightly pressing it with a warm iron prior to placing it on your quilt's back. It is important to get the batting nice and flat at this point because our next step will be placing our quilt top on top. Cut off any excess batting that extends prior to the backing. This will make it easier to see the edge of your backing so you can properly position your quilt top. Now position your quilt top on top of your batting. Line it up so it is straight with your backing. I like to smooth out my quilt top starting with the center and working outwards, always being careful not to warp my top in the process. Now it is time to thread baste. Grab your curved needles. I like to use this Dritz brand, and I prefer the smaller 2-inch needle, and grab some scrap thread. This is a good time to use contrasting thread color to your quilt, or a thread that has been in your stash for a long time. Don't use the good stuff. We're going to start from the center and work our way outwards in a spiral. If you're basting a really large quilt, it can be helpful to visualize your quilt divided into smaller segments and work each segment individually, always working from the center outwards. Thread your needle with a long length of thread, then place your curved needle into the quilt at an angle so you can easily go through all the layers and come back up to the top of your quilt. Pull your thread through, leaving about a 6-inch tail of thread at the beginning. Find your second spot and repeat the process. I like to baste about 3 to 4 inches apart, continuing to move in a spiral until I've used up all of my thread. Then I add a fresh length of thread to my needle and continue on. I found it helpful to knot the end of one thread to the beginning of the next one. If you leave them loose, they can start to pull or unravel when you're handling the quilt. Here you can better see the angle I'm bringing my needle in and out through all the quilt layers. Continue until your entire quilt is basted. This can take some time, so a good podcast or audiobook is recommended. And that's thread basting. Since I'm hand quilting this quilt, I'll hand quilt the entire thing, leaving the basting stitches in place until I'm done. Then I'll remove them all. Because I basted using rust orange thread, it will be easy to see where my basting thread is to be able to remove it.